So we're going to try to experiment with an issue you might run into when working on certain things like radio towers. So in general, a radio tower is going to do a number like this, right? And if I just loop cut it up, triangulate it all, Control T, and then what we can see here is we got all these little sections like this. And so if we delete all of the faces, only faces, we get this, and then we can try maybe something like the skin modifier and set that up. And when we're working on this, we should have an option available to change the mean radius like so. We can crank it down. So we could do something like this, right? Now, this is pretty awesome. It works really well, but the joints don't work out as well as you might want them to. You might be able to try some other types of settings or whatever the case, but this is usually kind of what you're going for a lot of times. And so what's the other options here that might be available? Is that maybe you want to do something like, let's just inset and hit I. And maybe we do something like this, right? Where we create like a little cage like this and we solidify it. So this might be another type of geo that you want, perhaps. And what we can see is like we can array this. And instead of doing it on X, we'll do it on Z. And we'll send it up now, right? Maybe not that high. But we need it to start to shrink towards the top here. So what can we do here to make this happen or occur anyways? Well, there's a couple ideas. First, maybe we try something like a lattice, right? We do, we'll use hard ops in this case to just create the lattice. It's going to create the lattice object. Doing that without an add-on is a lot more painful, but use hard ops or the modifier list add-on. It's much easier. But when you create the lattice object, you just scale these in. You can even negative scale them if you wanted to. Squish it even more. But there's a little problem with this one, and that is that you can see these don't shrink, right? They should, in theory, at least get smaller and smaller as they go up so it becomes lighter. So the lattice doesn't really work out quite the way you'd hope. What else could we try here? Well, this is where things get fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete the lattice object. We're going to use this still the way it is. But the array, we're going to do with an empty. So we're going to create a, down here at the bottom, Shift S, cursor is selected, Shift A, create an empty plain axis. We're going to use, instead of that, we're going to use object offset. And we're going to use this. Okay? And right now it's right at the center of the object, so it doesn't really do anything. But if we move it up, you can see what happens, right? So I'm going to hold control while moving it up, and you'll see that we can snap. We're just using absolute snap increment right now. But you can see it's going to line up like so. Perfect, right? Now, here's the trick. What happens if we want this to reduce every time it goes up, right? And we scale it. You see where this is going? So what if we scale it all by 0.9? So we'll get something like this going. Okay. And then this object down here, we can grab all these top verts perhaps. It might deform it a little bit in a weird way, but if we scale all those in, you see where that's going? So we can uniform scale the top half of this perhaps, but we're creating like these non-planar faces, I think. It might be a little non-planar. But yeah, we can do that. So that's interesting. Each new object is going to become a little bit smaller. Now we got a little bit of spacing going on here too, because it's going to lose its spacing, right? So we might have to eyeball it. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of like precise measurement here. S and Z this, or S it, whatever. Pretty sure there's some kind of precise measurements here we could go with. But we can eyeball this as well. And we probably want to eyeball up here the most, because this, it's kind of, it gets weird to work with, right? Like we need the selection of the empty. We got to go up here and look, and then we hit G and Z, and we can get those to combine together, like, or very close to combine together, like that. All right. So we can make little modular pieces like this without doing any like hard math, basically. That's what I'm getting at, is like we can do this fairly easily. Not super adjustable, I would say, like as far as like scaling and stuff. Like you can scale the whole of the overall object maybe, but it has, like, you see what happens when we scale the object. It doesn't scale the array, right? Like it doesn't do that. If we had parented this, you see, like it doesn't move. If we parent this to this and we hit Control P, parent object keep transform, and now we scale, the whole thing will scale. Okay. So this is something you might have to end up doing when working on these types of props or objects for your scenes. It's a little bit of a runaway train. It's not that fun to deal with, but in edit mode, you can continue to work on it, which is kind of fun. And you can see we can do numbers like this all day as well. But because it's set up in that manner, like we won't have too many major issues with it. In our case here, we have to grab this and use normal because we're working on an object basically in edit mode. So we're not doing like a regular object. We can't use local transforms. And we might have to use active element as well. And you can see it just gets a little squirrely sometimes. It'd be nice to be able to do the middle. We might get away with that with selecting all the faces. But you can see it's still, we're going to have to switch to medium. Yeah, it just doesn't quite do what we need it to do, unfortunately. We could try setting a transform here with the face. We'll see if that works out. And there we go. So a little bit better. So now we can basically go through polygonal model things, eyeball it a little bit, you know, try to get it as accurate as you need it. But the main thing is that we can also control this kind of on simple terms. Let's go back to global for a second. It's like, let's say this was just inside this surface here, like this, right? Maybe it was in that area or something. And of course, you would want to look at your reference images to make things more accurately, but there you go. Now we have that going like that. And that should work out fairly well. Our origin point should be in the center. And so we can use the 3D cursor as our pivot point. So if I was to take this now and Shift D, hit R and hold Control, I should be able to get this going like this, right? So if this was already UV mapped and textured, we did that once. Now we can hit Shift R to repeat. Whoop. We should be able to hit Shift R to repeat. In our case, it did not work out. So we're going to hit Shift D and R and hold Control. Shift D, R, hold Control. All right. And we'll get something like that going. Now, that's excellent. Now, you could have broke these off into their own object while working on them and then combine them back together. But sometimes, you know, you might want to do it in edit mode. Sometimes you might want to use them as objects. And when you join them back, it would work out as well. So let me just prove that point. If I was to take all of these real quick and separate them as a selection, they should be like so. Actually, you know what? Let's delete. Let's redo it real quick. We'll delete all these. So we only have the one. Its origin point's in the center. All right. And what we should be able to do is say, do the same thing, but we're going to do Alt D, R, hold Control, Shift R, Shift R. And then now these are instances of each other. So if we ever need to modify one, we can Alt Q between the instances or the linked duplicates. And we can do like a bevel or a chamfer and inset and hold Control. All that fun stuff we can start to do now. Hit I, turn that individual off. All right, but now we get that going. So, but these are instances. Let's say they weren't instances. Let's say you duplicated them. Like right now, if I modify one, it modifies all of them, right? Let's just say we duplicated them by accident. So we did Shift D, hold Control, Shift R a few times, right? And you can see if I modify one now, it doesn't update the others. You can actually grab these, grab this one last, Control L, and link object data as well. So now you can continue to work on them. And you can see how that works out, right? So we can actually work on them still, which is great. But when we're ready, we take all of these and we can join them to this base here. So we Control J, and you see it just instantly propagates all the way up now. So sometimes it's better to work on them as individual objects, and then, you know, at that last final step there, you do this, because, you know, we can definitely, when they're instances at least, like we can go in here and we smart UV project it for now. We can UV unwrap it, do something like this perhaps, and then now these will all have UVs. If we unwrap this one, turn these off in edit mode, we'd have to apply the solidify perhaps, but same idea. We could unwrap it, and you can see where this is going to go now, right? So as soon as I join this to this, boom, it's all going to have the exact same UVs. So we end up with this. We can repack it maybe. And probably want to re-unwrap that one, to be honest, because it's not quite the way I would want it. But the main idea is that this would all be unwrapped, right? All of this would be unwrapped. These ones didn't get joined in yet. This is not, you see where that's kind of going though? I probably should have joined those, to be honest. So let's go through and grab these again real quick. Just get a hold of them. We can just grab this one, press L on it, because it's not joined to the other mesh. Okay, and we'll separate it even. Get rid of them. Usually you have the modifiers left over. You got to get rid of them. But then you can grab that one piece. You can Alt-D, R, hold Control, Shift-R. Okay, so they're all instanced. Grab them. Grab the base, Control-J, boom. And it'll all be like this. Now, the only problem with this is we have some overlaps. Okay, and that's what we actually want. We want overlap. So let's grab these objects. L, 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 L. Okay, you see how they all match up with each other? Great. But if we were to repack this, it's going to unoverlap them basically. And you would want to use cardinal to keep them up and down and left and right. But the main thing is that it will unpack them like that. So if you want unique textures on everything, that's fine. But if you want to repeat that same texture across all of them, you can't really pack it that way. You can pin with Vanilla Blender. Pinning will keep them all in place basically. So you can just like right click and pin, you see? And so when you go to pack it now, it doesn't do none of that, right? It's not gonna move them around anymore, basically. So if we had placed them where we need them, or actually we could average island scales too, right? But when we place these where we need them, and then we do the pack, watch this, right? Okay, whoops. I think you got to turn the setting on actually. Lock all pinned islands. Okay, boom. There you go. So you can actually keep them in position where you need them or want them or whatever. You can manually unwrap this and do all that other fun stuff. But I'm going to show you one more little trick before we go off this video. Let's say we don't want to use the pin system. Is there another way of doing this? With an add-on, there is. You can use Packmaster, guys. And so you want to make sure everything has spacing between them, right? So these ones, make sure they're spaced. Alt-S with the UV Toolkit add-on will actually scale them like that. These are okay for now. Check this out. We can actually go to Packmaster and Advanced Packing. We can lock overlapping sections, and we can make this pre-rotation disabled. We can add a pixel margin. We'll set it 1024 and 8. And heuristic search if you want. And when we pack all of this, anything that's overlapping will not unoverlap, basically. Or it shouldn't anyways. It doesn't mean it always works, but it shouldn't. So let's just check them and see if it does in fact not unoverlap them. And it doesn't. Okay. So we're going to get a higher efficiency pack here off of that. These would be better if we broke apart as well so that they don't eat up so much space. And this whole island would look way better if we had did that. Now, you know, like how do we actually do that? Like there's different ways. Maybe we grab the face right here and we just, you can hit Y and it should rip it. I don't know why the menu's like this, but Y here. So just Y rips, boom. Y rips, and then boom. All right. A lot of these would probably be similar if we were doing like high to low bakes. It's not a guarantee that would happen, but there's no reason to do a high to low bake on this anyways. For the most part, let's just say we needed to split them up and repack it. It's all set up. It's good to go. You see how much better that is now? And voila, it goes all the way up. So, yep, you would texture in Substance Painter, more than likely, just this piece. If you're going to do a unique texture for it, or you can slap seamless texture on it, or whatever the case. But that's it, yeah. That's kind of how it goes. I did get rid of that solidify, or I turned it off, actually. But you would actually unwrap it with the solidify, too. And I just kept it off because it's easier to look at, right? For the unwrapping there. But that's the basic idea. Some of these apparently are having issues. Let's see what's going on there. I actually didn't notice that before. Wondering what that's about. It shouldn't be doing that. It's like an extra face comes out of nowhere. That's from the solidify. Oh, because it's solidifying our object. Okay. Yeah, so before we join those in, we probably would want to get rid of that solidify on it, possibly. Yeah. So, yeah, things like that, they happen sometimes. Let's just fix it real quick. I mean, we already know how simple this is going to be. We just take these, separate them, right? The solidify here, we would apply like we should have been doing to unwrap it correctly anyways. And then these ones here, you don't use the solidify on it. You don't need the array either. And so, but these will still be all overlapped right now. That'll solve our problem. So when we Control J it back, no problem at all, right? And that's it, guys. So these towers, this is a more ideal setup, I would say. You do have to remember one thing here, though, and that is that because of the way we did do this, we have these extra faces on the inside here. You don't necessarily need those. So you actually, when you're making this piece as a little modular piece, you can model it this way, but when you get done with the whole thing, you can either go through and remove all of those, or you can model it in a way where these here are just deleted on, like, say, the tops and the bottoms. It's actually much easier to add these back after the array, I think, because then you won't have any of those in the middle there. Also, these are not joined together. You need a weld modifier, okay? And that would actually go ahead and finish the joining of those pieces potentially. Like we won't really see much of a result here, perhaps. We might not anyways. You can see they're misaligned just a little bit. Okay, so you could take your time to get that more correct, but let me crank the weld modifier up a little bit and they should, yeah, eventually snap together. We just want to make sure that's doing that more than likely all the way up where they're actually going to weld. And you can see we got some other stuff going. Oh, no, I extruded there. Okay, I thought I had it misaligned. I was like, maybe I did something wrong. Yeah, it can go wrong sometimes. So it's not as simple as like a step-by-step process, like you're going to do A, B, and C. You run into issues. Sometimes you got to work around those issues, and you got to get through it and figure out, how to approach these kinds of things. And so this might be really useful too. It's one of those things that you learn to do with modular pieces, where if you don't know the math behind it, right, you just eyeball it. You use empties and gizmo, or in 3D Studio Max, it's called gizmos a lot of times when you're using modifiers, and it has like a little empty already set up for you for them. But in Blender, you use empties, which take longer. You got to remember to set them up sometimes and how you can use them with different modifiers. But it's really simple to use, like, once you understand it, right? Like, you just have to create those empties. The modifier list add-on, by the way, just to give you an idea here, you'll notice that we have these like create empty buttons, and it switches it to the object which it created, which is an empty. So you can always do those ones too, in that manner if you wanted to. So now you can see how that's going to go with that one. And we can control it with the empty. There's other kind of cool things you can do with this if you had a different kind of geometric form. Like if you wanted to do rotations every 10 degrees, 20, 45, something, whatever, like you can do that too. So you can make really complex kind of like base forms and then work them out in this manner. And it doesn't stop here either, guys. Like this is just the start of using modifiers to create non-destructive like setups like this, or mostly non-destructive, semi-non-destructive. You have other things like simple deform, right? Simple deform's a pain because it never does what you think it should do. but it works better with an empty at the origin point. So I'm just going to use the modifier list add-on for that. And then you can see we want to do like a bend, and now we got it bending kind of like this. Like we can control this bend in that manner, but we can also grab this empty and kind of change how it behaves and do things like this. So if you ever wanted to like keyframe these kind of things and animate them this way, I guess you could. But if you want to change the direction, perhaps you hit R and Z in that case, but sometimes R and X and Y. It's a lot of times it's like RX 90 will fix usually your problems you're having with it, but you have to rotate them sometimes twice, right? But it's usually like an RY or RX or RZ 90. And then you might have to do like another one, like another RXYZ 90 or 45 or whatever you need. It's a little bit counterintuitive sometimes, but that's going to help get you to this point where you're doing things like this potentially. And then you combo it up with your other modifiers, guys. Like you just keep working this kind of idea. Like if you want to mirror and you want to mirror across a certain way and you want to bisect it, you see like now we got, it's all cut in the middle, right? So maybe we got some antlers or something we're making, I don't know. But I think you get the idea. So you could do like really crazy geometric forms this way. Not to mention, you can always do like, you can put geometry on a curve if you want to do that as well. It's going to deform these kinds of shapes quite a bit, but it might be useful to you to do some things like that, because you never know when you might do that, because you have, I don't know, crazy types of structural support elements that you got to create. So you do a little twist to it, right? Maybe you do that, or maybe use an empty with it and then twist it with that in some other kind of weird direction or something. Then you bend it. You can stack multiples of these, right? Like we could do a twist first. Right now, I don't like the way it's twisting, so let's see if we can't do something a little different. Twisting from the bottom would be nice. And it's kind of like twisting in the Y direction, or it seems like the wrong direction. Let's do Z. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, look at that. See? So yeah, there you go. That's more complicated looking now, right? Then we do another simple deform. And sometimes your empties are going to be hard to see when they start stacking on top of each other, but basically just create another empty. In our case, we're going to bend it as well. Right? And you see how that goes basically, right? So we can go all the way back to the array, and we can start bumping the array count up as well. If we wanted to do something really crazy like that, perhaps. Now, obviously, it's really hard to tweak or adjust the scaling effect, right? Like we want it to scale less, maybe. So sometimes it's better to just, we could adjust the modifier or the empty. Sometimes it's good to turn these off temporarily in like steps, so we can make sure we're getting things mostly correct. There's a good odd chance with this one, we'll have to just distort it a little. Let's turn the array on. Something like that for now. That's probably not the best answer to do it like this, but I think you get the idea. And you can see our arrays don't really match up either. So we can tweak that array a little bit. It looks like it gets a little bit wider, so let's shrink it down. Bring it down. All right. Is it still tapered? Yeah, there you go. Much more narrow of an angle. It should still weld. Like it shouldn't have a problem with that, and it should be able to twist. All right. Hopefully that all worked out, because it looks like it gets a little thicker there at the bottom, but I'm not sure if it's actually doing that. It's just an illusion because of the twist. Yeah, there we go. So you can imagine you're doing some kind of tunnel or some kind of crazy stuff later on, and you have something like this going. You notice if I Alt D or Shift D and duplicate it, it goes crazy, unfortunately. Move this to a collection. Make sure I got all of it, including the empty. As a cube, a random cube. I don't know what that is. All right, so take all that, move it to a collection, and you could leave them in their respective things, but there's a reason I want to do this. So we're going to do tower. We'll just call it a tower. I don't know, or frame or structure or something. And because we can shift A, if this is at the scene center right here, which a lot of times it won't be, we need it dead center, something like this. Okay. I can find it. It's in here. I'll see it. Let's snap to the grid. G, Z. Boom. Okay. We're trying to get this like this right now. Usually you would put the pivot point at the bottom, not in the middle of this one, but it's easier to model it this way, surprisingly. So, but once we've done this, it's in its own group, right? Its own collection. That's golden, because now, later on, if you're working with a big scene inside of Blender, you can do a collection instance of whatever your collection is, right? All right. And it'll have its origin point at the exact same spot. It's based off of the world origin. So, but you can do this. Little to no issue with this, right? The only thing is you can't use modifiers on these, which is kind of a letdown. It would be really nice if you could, but you can't. I think there's a lot of problems with grouping in Blender still, and the collection instances isn't the solution to it. Like, it helps, but it's not the solution at all. And so, and grid snapping is really weird now since they've updated it. But, you know, those are some of my big gripes. But I guess, you know, you can see where this is going to start going at some point. If you do this thoughtfully, while working, you can make modular pieces like this anyways. So in our case, we didn't quite loop it all the way back around, but you can imagine doing arches like this, or whatever you want, really. So you can make all kinds of crazy stuff. And you probably just make the one piece and then set it up in the game engine in a very similar way. So if the modularity works here, it works in the game engine more than likely, because they have the same snapping setup, more or less. So that's the main idea. So if you ever have to do that kind of thing, and that might be a thing, right? All right, so you're like, when would I ever use this? Well, obviously, when you're creating certain types of structures and things. You can see here, this one, there'd be a lot of that going on potentially if you're doing something of real high quality, like a render or something. Game engines, you might not do it exactly the same way. You might use like planes and stuff. I mean, it depends on how much detail it needs, right? It could be a lot of just stuff in here that needs to get done, and then, you know, LODs need to be created and all kinds of other fun stuff. So yeah, there's like some really tricky projects to work on. I would say this is kind of one of them, is when you start doing stuff like this anyways. It can do that. But which one was our original? That's the question. The one in the collection for now. You can usually hide these and just use the instances, but let's say we just don't want the twist. There you go. Done. Turn that twist off, right? You want to change the bend or something? Like, we can always do that, basically. So we want these to meet up at some point. We'll move these ones out. Oh. Okay, why did they all move if I did the one? Okay, we'll move these ones out then. I thought that we were the other way around. It should just be like a 90 degree anyways. I don't know why I'm fighting with it like that, but maybe a little extra. Sometimes it needs a little extra for some reason. So you can see I'm moving the instances, or the link duplicates, or the collection instances. Geez, it's all the same thing almost. Similar. And then I'm modifying the one we had selected originally, which is ridiculous way of working with it, but it's kind of interesting, right? Yay, we got arches now. How about that? Yep, so there you go, guys. If it helps you out, it helps you out. Hopefully it does, and I'll check you out in the next one, all right? Take care.